The PIT maneuver, precision immobilization technique, also referred to as TVI, tactical vehicle intervention, and much less frequently as the pursuit intervention technique and tactical vehicle interception, is a widely adopted tactic to end police pursuits employed by many law enforcement organizations since at least the early 1990s. You'd think that such a well-known tactic that has certification status, as well as defined training programs across the United States, would have a clearly defined origin story with dates, names, and locations. You'd think, but you'd be wrong. In this video, I'll show you my findings on researching the true origin of the PIT maneuver and reveal the name of the man who invented it. There are many conflicting accounts for the origin of the PIT maneuver, both as the actual name of the technique as well as any detailed descriptions of the deliberate act of causing a vehicle to lose traction on its rear wheels by pushing on the rear quarter panel of the vehicle with the front bumper or fender of a trailing vehicle. Some sources claim that what we now call the PIT maneuver is the same thing as what has long been known as a bump and run in NASCAR. However, a bump and run in NASCAR is quite often used to describe a nudging on the vehicle's rear bumper rather than specifically as a nudge from the side, with the intended effect being to force the driver in the target vehicle to correct steering, slow down, or at least momentarily stop accelerating so the trailing car can gain an opportunity to accelerate past the target vehicle. A closer analogy for the PIT maneuver in NASCAR, though, might actually be what is known as a dump and run, which is essentially a more forceful bump by the trailing car that causes the target vehicle to spin out and crash. But again, dump and runs do not specifically refer to a side impact of one of the rear quarter panels on the target vehicle, and are most commonly caused by poorly executed bump and run attempts by a trailing driver. More recently, NASCAR driver Austin Dillon was the subject of much controversy in 2024 for this move.
There's the contact! He does get to him! The 11 on the inside! He gets into the wall! Dillon's gonna win it at the line!
And now a typical PIT maneuver. So is that really the same thing as a dump and run? Not really in terms of technique or intent. So for that reason, I believe this debunks NASCAR as the true origin of the PIT maneuver as we know it today. If you think otherwise, please leave a comment below and explain what you think I'm missing here. Some sources indicate that the FBI developed the PIT maneuver. Other sources indicate that it was developed by BSR Incorporated, Bill Scott Racing, and first used by the Fairfax County Police Department in Virginia in 1988 or 1985, depending on the specific source. No doubt the FBI, BSR, and the Fairfax County Police Department play very significant roles in the popularization of the PIT maneuver. More on that later, but none of these organizations actually invented the technique.
You are not the father.
I know what some of you are probably thinking right now. How can I be so sure? I mean, the FBI could well have invented it and treated it as sensitive information, and nobody outside the FBI would be any the wiser. Surely the FBI has a tremendous amount of knowledge and many processes, procedures, and tactics that would not be public knowledge. This is undisputed fact. However, the FBI also has a long-standing tradition of collaboration with state and local law enforcement organizations, providing ongoing training and sharing information to help non-federal law enforcement be successful. One tangible example of this is the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin. The FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin is a magazine/journal that has been published monthly since 1932 by the FBI Law Enforcement Communication Unit, with articles of interest to state and local law enforcement personnel. Now hold that thought on the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin. I searched online newspaper archives for various phrases in order to find the first instances of newspaper reports on the PIT maneuver in any of its various names by various organizations over the years. I found Pursuit Intervention Technique first appearing on February 13, 1995 in the Capital Times. I found Tactical Vehicle Intervention first used in an April 15, 1995 article in the Olympian out of Olympia, Washington. I mention these just to establish that these terms came out well after the term Precision Immobilization Technique was well established. Why were these different terms being introduced several years after Precision Immobilization Technique had already been well established? Now, as for the first newspaper occurrence of Pursuit Immobilization Technique, I found that in an article with the headline, Chase Closed, CHP Uses New Technique, which was published in the Press Enterprise of Riverside, California on March 24, 1993. The article states that the pit maneuver was added to the Emergency Vehicle Operations course at the CHP Academy near Sacramento in May of 1992. The article also claims that the pit maneuver was developed by a driving instructor/officer at the CHP Academy. I'm redacting the instructor's name, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that the journalist who wrote the article misunderstood that the instructor developed the pit maneuver program for the CHP rather than the technique itself. We all know that the Fairfax County Police Department was the first in the U.S. to roll out the pit maneuver program. Remember the FBI law enforcement bulletin I mentioned earlier? Well, there was an article published in the September 1992 edition in the Focus on Pursuit section under the title, The Precision Immobilization Technique. It was written by none other than a Mr. Terry L. Pearson of the Public Safety Academy, Fairfax County, Virginia. Mr. Pearson's article is extremely helpful in fleshing out details on what happened when and the reasoning behind specific aspects such as human life, injury, damage to property, and legal liability. One thing is clear though, at least as far as the formal name Precision Immobilization Technique is concerned. The Fairfax County Police Department came up with the name for the technique and developed a robust training program for it. A newspaper article from Greensboro, North Carolina, dated August 23, 2004, claims the pit originated during the late 1980s at BSR Incorporated, an advanced driving training center in West Virginia. BSR first labeled the technique Tactical Vehicle Interception. That part is what I take exception to because Tactical Vehicle Interception does not seem to appear until many years later. But in any event, Fairfax County, Virginia adopted the method and modified the maneuver for police use. Officials there renamed it the pit and started teaching other agencies. But what about the technique itself? There's an important clue in the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin article. Mr. Pearson doesn't take credit for developing the actual technique. The article states, personnel from a German auto manufacturer explored the feasibility of controlled vehicle intervention and published the results of that project in 1982, with the research conducted by the auto manufacturer along with instructions from a private driving school. The Fairfax County Police Department developed the Precision Immobilization Technique, PIT. So thanks to this article, we have a solid lead on exactly where the actual technique originated, or at least a further link back. There is a source cited in reference to the German auto manufacturer, researched by Daimler-Benz for Safety is No Coincidence, Germany, 1982. As it turns out, the reference document from Daimler-Benz wasn't so much a publication on the results from a study on the feasibility of controlled vehicle intervention, but was actually a book on high-threat driving techniques and included a lot of information on specific driving tactics such as the J-turn, which is a method for a high-speed 180-degree turn to avoid something or someone in what could be dire circumstances. I tried to purchase a copy online, but the closest I came was finding an eBay listing for a copy of the German edition in Australia that ended up being sold a few months prior. The listing states the book is rare, and indeed it seems to be, as search results for the title in both German and English do not provide much joy. But why would Daimler-Benz have published such a book in the first place? Did Mercedes-Benz expect their customers to actually drive their vehicles in the manner described in this book? No doubt at least a few of you who have done a bit of research have seen a reference or two that implies that the pit maneuver is an anti-terrorist driving technique. For example, a March 17, 2021 article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution states, "The precision immobilization technique, PIT, is a law enforcement tactic widely taught as an anti-terrorist driving maneuver." To understand why Daimler-Benz would even be interested in publishing Safety is No Coincidence, we need to go back to the horrific events that occurred at the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich, West Germany. This singular event prompted the country of Germany to create their elite counterterrorism unit, GSG-9. Beyond non-German bad actors in the following years, activity from domestic extremist groups with anti-capitalist views also became a huge problem, culminating in one extremist group taking several very high-profile people against their will, to include a political candidate for mayor of West Berlin, and in a botched attempt to take a bank president against his will, they unalived him. If all that wasn't enough, on September 5, 1977, a man named Hans Martin Schleyer was taken against his will. Now this is important because a few things converge here in a surprising way. Schleyer was at that time the president of the German Employers Association, and thus one of the most powerful industrialists in West Germany. Not only that, he was also a member of the Daimler-Benz Board of Management. If all that wasn't enough, consider the fact that Schleyer was taken while traveling in a convoy. Naturally, that car was a Mercedes too. I've never seen an account that explicitly states this, but it isn't much of a leap to think that the executives at Daimler-Benz had to be thinking, this is personal now. But what does all of this have to do with the pit maneuver? Hold your horses, the answer's coming, I promise. An article in the London newspaper The Observer, dated July 12, 1992, indicates that Mercedes-Benz was actually approached by Germany's elite GSG-9 in the 70s for advice on how to best use their new fleet of 16 Mercedes vehicles. And what did Mercedes-Benz do in response? Well, they established a robust safety training program that included techniques specifically designed to meet the needs of the GSG-9. As bad as things were in Germany at the time, with so much political unrest, it's important to consider that extremists were not confined to just Germany. Other countries were also facing similar challenges, some from the very same extremist groups that had an active international presence. Mercedes-Benz customers included the most elite people in the world. The driving school went on to teach the King of Spain's chauffeur, drivers from the Kuwaiti royal family, members of Britain's anti-terrorist police, and chauffeurs of politicians and diplomats around the world. Let me introduce you to someone very important, but I doubt that you've heard of him before. That's Guido Mach. Guido started working at Mercedes-Benz in 1959. Guido was the head of development testing. He was also a world authority on escape and evasion driving techniques. He was the one who headed up the elite driving school at Mercedes-Benz, utilizing an impressive team of 200 test drivers. That book I mentioned earlier, Safety is No Coincidence, Guido wrote it, and it was given to students of his driving school. That explains the rarity of the book for sure. As much as I would have liked to have gotten my hands on an actual copy of the book, I was able to find exactly what I was hoping would be in it in an old video from 1997. Page 63 contained a section entitled Forcing Someone Off the Road, and pages 64 and 65 contained a huge diagram of, you guessed it, the pit maneuver. Here's the money shot, right front fender to left rear quarter panel. Guido appeared on a 1997 VHS video that was later released on DVD in 2004 called Apocalypse Clarkson. It was hosted by the well-known English television personality Jeremy Clarkson of Top Gear and the Grand Tour fame. It was apparently a home release only, and it seems to be as unobtainable as the book Safety is No Coincidence, with seemingly no copies available to purchase online, nor any way to watch it online, at least not in decent picture quality. So there you have it. We finally have a name to put for consideration as the inventor of the pit maneuver, along with a backstory that anyone can feel free to either confirm or refute. Let me know if you think I've missed the mark on anything in the comments below. I welcome healthy dialogue on this topic, and I'll be happy to follow up this video with subsequent videos to either delve deeper on this topic or make any needed corrections. In conclusion, it seems clear to me that 1. Sorry NASCAR fans, the pit maneuver has absolutely nothing to do with NASCAR. 2. Guido Mach, if not the outright inventor of the pit maneuver, was at least the first person to publish an accurate description of the technique. And 3. Terry L. Pearson christened the technique with the name we all recognize today, the Precision Immobilization Technique / pit maneuver. This is my first video on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it more than you can know. As for Guido Mach, sadly he passed away in 2022 at the ripe age of 91 years old. Guido was more than a one-trick pony though. While researching, I found enough interesting information to share in a future video dedicated to him. I wish this man would have had a book written about him, as he had an absolutely fascinating life.
Forcing someone off the road. There are diagrams and pictures explaining exactly how you do it.